We are currently at the login screen, or command center of the POS. At this screen, we have single touch access to each of our back-end functions as well as the POS front end to begin ringing in transactions. You will notice on each side I have the ability to track information about my business, including a logo. You also have a reminder section at the bottom that can be quickly updated to leave messages for your employees, daily or whenever you choose. I will begin by selecting our POS function. This will prompt us to log in. I logged in using a cashier's credentials and will demonstrate a basic sale. You will notice our POS functions are laid out on the bottom and right hand sides. We'll go over these shortly, but for a cashier to ring in a sale, they only need to scan in an item. Once the item is entered, it will be added to the transaction. At this point, I can select payment or select end on my keyboard. I can then enter an amount or select insert to enter exact change. This will now print our invoice and give us a few invoice options, such as printing a gift receipt, shipping label, or emailing this invoice from the POS. I will begin another simple sale. At this point, the customer hands me a membership card. To add a customer to the transaction, I can swipe a membership card with magnetic strip data. I can scan a barcoded membership ID or type a membership ID into the search field. If the strip or other data is not working and I am unsure what his information is, I can select Change Customer or F6 to get there quickly to enter my customer database. Once in the customer database, I can search for my customer using any data I've recorded. This includes first or last name, address, phone number, or email. By typing John, it filters my list to any entries with the word John in a field. In this case, I received two customers, one with the first name John, the second with the last name Johns. To add John to the ticket, I can double tap his name. At this point, I pay out my transaction. If a customer were to bring a shirt to the register, the shirt having a shared barcode with all sizes and colors of the brand, when I scan the barcode, the system will prompt me for a size. I'm going to select medium and blue. So now that I've rung in this medium blue shirt, I'm going to continue my order. Then, upon reaching the third item, the system's unable to read the barcode. The barcode's scratched enough that I'm not able to read it either. So I can select SKU Lookup right here at the bottom, or F5 to open up my SKU Lookup screen. Within SKU Lookup, I can search by any information that has been recorded. I can now quickly find my item and double tap to add this to the order. As before, it will prompt me for size because it shares a SKU amongst the other shoes. At this point, my customer complains because the ad set team forgot to remove the 20% off discount from the shoe the night before. The merchant demands that she receive the discount, or they do not want any of the items on the check. At this point, I can select Discount or F2 to open my discount screen, and I can reduce the price by a percentage or amount off, and then apply a reason. I can now pay out my transaction. Then the customer realizes she forgot an item and would like me to hold the items until she returns. Instead of tying up my register, I can select a separate transaction type, in this case Park, to hold this ticket until she returns. I can also use these transaction types for layaways or rentals. Besides our common functions, we also have all of our uncommon but necessary functions available at the bottom and right hand side of the screens. Many of these are self-explanatory, such as open till, change price, change tax, change quantity. However, we have a few, such as recall transaction, which allows us to search for a transaction filtered however we choose, such as a customer or the day of the transaction. This is not only useful for returns, but especially useful for rentals or layaway. We also have the ability to resize or reorganize our POS screen. As you can see, I can move the fields around. I can also select and resize the font. Make this information bold or regular. You'll also notice the Change Clerk function. The term clerk is not the same as a cashier, as you can see above. By default, they are the same, but we have the ability to change the clerk being the individual the transaction is assigned to. This is for tracking sales-based incentives or commissions. We can also change the buttons on the right side of the screen into a quick launch screen. This allows us to create quick touch buttons that trigger functions of our choosing. These functions can be software features or external functions, such as loading a vendor's website or launching an Excel spreadsheet. As a manager or owner, I need quick access to the back-end functions, so you'll notice that from the POS screen, I can select any of my management functions at the top of the screen. If I'm logged in as a manager, I can access these at a single touch. Otherwise, I will first need to log in. At this point, I can select any of my management functions at a single touch. The inventory screen gives me a quick overview of all my items available to be edited. I can customize this interface as I was able to customize the POS screen by reorganizing the order of information or the font. In all of my back-end screens, I will find a green button to create, a blue button for refresh or edit, and a red button for delete. I can also import items from this screen using import SKUs. This allows me to import an inventory list from another POS system, a vendor's list, or an Excel file I've generated. If I select create a new SKU will automatically be generated. If I would like to assign a SKU, I can fill out the new SKU field before selecting create new SKU. The only information I need to supply is a description, vendor, and department. I am also able to quickly enter common fields such as a product number for my vendor, the cost, or the price. Attributes give me the ability to create custom fields. So if I were to be running a bookstore, I can create an ISBN or an author's name. There's also an option to add barcodes in the case of using an item with a shared SKU, and I can also generate serial numbers every time the item is sold for use in cases such as a gun shop. If I select print labels, I can access my label designer. This allows me to create barcodes and customize the layout to my liking. If I select prices, I will come to my pricing rules screen. I can create any number of custom pricing rules which allow me to create case breakdowns for tracking single bottles, six-packs, and cases in liquor stores or similar items. I can also bundle items and create discounts. The custom pricing rules are based on mathematics, so any logical combination the mind can imagine can be created. The most common options, such as a buy one get one free deal, are also available in the Create Advanced Rules dropdown. Since these rules are not typically specific to an individual item, you can then select Build Query, which will allow you to add variables to this discount, assigning it to additional items. A common example is discounting or marking up the price of all items under a specific vendor. From the inventory screen, I can also generate a purchase order. The purchase order will automatically generate a list of items that pass their reorder point and add the amount we assigned as our maximum. We can then review and modify the purchase order before saving. We can use this to track how much money is owed or has been paid to our vendors. Special orders can be placed if we receive a request for an item that is currently out of stock and track that that item is on order. And inventory counts can be run in a number of ways, from a complete inventory down to an individual employee spot check. You can supply employees with wireless scanners to quickly check items at any time you're choosing. If we select customers, we will enter our customer database. We can once again customize this screen to our liking or add new customers using our green buttons. When we first select Add New Customer, we will be presented with an overwhelming amount of information. But most businesses only want to be able to track a name, phone number, and email address. By selecting less detail, the process is simplified to only these three pieces of information. If I then choose to add more information to a customer, I can select more at any time. From here, the first option I have is a customer type. This allows me to specify common types such as employees, VIP customers, wholesalers, or other customer types that may receive discounts or specials. In addition to the common information I may want to track, I can also add a membership ID or track loyalty rewards. I'd also be able to track store credit or account receivable balances, and even keep a picture of the customer on file. Once again, we have attributes available. This allows us to create any custom fields that we would like to add. A good example would be a bow draw length within an archery business. If I select reports, you will notice that we have some simple categories available. When you first receive the system, you'll want to review this list with a trainer or the documentation that's supplied to choose which reports you'll commonly use. You can then save these reports as favorites and use this selection screen on the left for reference. You will see why if I expand every single category available, as we have close to 700 base reports in the system. Over years of experience, every time we've received a request for a report, say 3 of 5 times, it was added to the system. In addition to the base reports, we once again have our query builder, which allows any report to be further modified with any information you choose. If we select our sales by department category, then select Build Query, we can further sort this information by vendor, for example, or isolate this to specific departments. I can also pull these reports using any start and end date, which gives me the ability to pull a month, week, or specific day of my choosing. If I select the setup screen, I will be presented with all of my POS settings. Once again, each screen follows our simple green to add, red to delete theme. The first section is our positions. By selecting Add Position, we're given the opportunity to name it. Then on the right hand side, we can select which permissions are available. The permissions are organized by each screen, allowing you to quickly remove whole sections. However, if you'd prefer to isolate individual settings, each function that can be touched within the POS can be turned on or off per position. When creating employees, the only required information is a first name and last name, username for logging in, and a password. Once again, we have attributes to track any additional information you wish. A common example would be a driver's license or a birthday. If we select our stores section, this allows us to add the store information that displays on the login screen, as well as any applicable information such as taxes and the time your store closes. This screen also allows for each store to be set up in a multi-location environment if your business will be syncing inventory, allowing items to be viewed or transferred between locations. We can also select messages, giving us the ability to customize all of our invoices. This can be as simple as "Have a nice day," or as complex as listing the customer's name, a due date, a signature line, as well as your return policy. There's an attributes section, which is commonly used for the store for information such as a Google Calendar or an email account. In general settings, we can create new payment types, customer types, or attributes. We can also have access to manually back up our database if we choose. Within inventory settings, we can add our departments, dimensions, and other inventory related information. These screens will rarely be accessed after the first week when you're fine-tuning your system, but as you can see, they are simple to use. They follow our same green and red theme. At this point, we'll review our day end. We can select our day end here at the top. Once in the day end screen, we can reconcile by store, by till, by cashier. We can also reconcile our float if we want to count individual bills and coins. Otherwise, we can just reconcile our cash totals and other tenders. Once we're finished, we would just select Save Payment Totals. This is going to print our sales report, as well as store that information in the POS. If I would like, I can select Create GL, which will give me the ability to export this information as an IAF file for QuickBooks. This will generate a GL with all of the transactions since the last time this GL was generated. An additional feature I'd like to mention that is not part of our base product is the Lighthouse application. At this time, Lighthouse's full functionality is only available on our hospitality product, but in the short-term future, this will allow you to access a web-based portal This means that if you're sitting on a cruise with a laptop, you can log into a website using Wi-Fi and make changes to your inventory, pull your most common reports, send messages to your managers, employees, in any of your business locations. At the moment, the only functionality available on the advanced retail product is the ability to remote into one of your terminals. You would be able to take control of a terminal to make changes from a remote location, or you could simply log in to monitor your employees. Lighthouse gives us the ability to have a funnel, so to speak, where we can quickly drop updates onto your POS and every other POS out in the field at any time, which means that as we release new products, if we have a wireless scanning app that's available to our retail customers, we would be able to have a link drop right into the Lighthouse application. When you select that icon on your POS, you'll see a link that says wireless scanner. When you select that link, it's going to run you through a basic wizard of how to set that function up. Anytime we add new development, it's dropped in free of charge as an update, as well as any future updates to the product.